Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show. I'm so delighted to have my two friends, Abby and Kristyn, on today's show. You're the co-founders of Rescripted. Abby was the former founder of Best Shot. Are we talking tequila? Because I would love those shots. And Kristyn is the original founder of the Fertility Tribe, and both are mothers of IVF boy and girl twins. Wow. We're going to talk about rewriting the script of fertility with both of you. Welcome, you guys.
Hi, thanks, Dr. Amy.
Thank you for having us.
Tell us, how did you meet?
On Instagram. How else does one meet in the infertility community?
And what led you both to joining forces for your company that's all about fertility?
We both had businesses of our own, and I'll briefly touch on mine. But so when I went through my IVF journey, I just became very passionate about everything that was wrong with it. So I was a former VC investor, and so I was investing in technology. And when I went through IVF, I took that lens to like all of the problems that I saw during my journey. And this was back in 2018. And I specifically became really interested in medication management and also mental health, problems with both of those things. And I'm a natural born entrepreneur. I'm an Aries. And so I ultimately was successful, which was fantastic. As I had these two babies like staring up at me, I just couldn't stop thinking about my like infertile brethren, and ended up wanting to start a business that was focused on medication management. And so I did that. And then our other co-founder, Pear, and I said, you know what, we're actually really not affecting enough lives here. Like, we're really not helping as much as we possibly could. We decided to kind of pivot direct to consumer and go after the consumer and helping them more closely versus just with their clinic, and developing tools for them and resources for them. And so I ended up saying, man, I wish I knew more about the consumer, like how to talk to them, how to resonate with them, how to communicate with them. And luckily I met the perfect person to do just that. And so that was Kristyn, and I slid into Kristyn's DMs. There was like, hey, can we chat? I just want to get to know you. And then Kristyn obviously has an amazing story of her own.
I was joking with a friend that like infertility has become my personality because I feel like it has taken up so much of my life over the past 5 years in both good and bad ways. But the origin of my original company, the Fertility Tribe, was really that I was diagnosed with PCOS when I was 27. I was having irregular periods or actually no periods at all. My OBGYN sent me to get some tests run, got diagnosed with PCOS, and got sent straight to a fertility clinic. So here I am, not even 28 years old. None of my friends were trying to conceive, let alone going through fertility treatments. And I'm sitting in the fertility clinic waiting room. No one's making eye contact in the one place where I'm like, oh, okay, like all these people are going through the same thing as me. And yet there were no support groups, no resources, no sense of community where I could find support. Your friends and family only understand so much when they haven't been through it. So I started documenting my journey. I started a blog. I started sharing on Instagram. And even though it was only 5 years ago, it was before a lot of people started sharing on Instagram, and it struck a nerve and just grew from there. So it went from my own personal blog to then I started sharing other people's journeys, and it kind of turned into the first and only digital publishing platform for all things fertility and non-traditional paths to parenthood. And my background's in publishing, and I love all things reading and writing and editing are my strengths, I guess you could say. So I really felt like this was the resource that was missing. And so between the content we provided and then the community that we provided for support, those were our two big areas, because I didn't want to charge the patient. I didn't know how to scale it as an actual business so that I could leave my full-time job and do this full-time. And then I actually ended up leaving my full-time job due to COVID and not having childcare at the time, and actually just met Abby by happenstance at that time. And it all just, she's like, I don't know how to grow. I don't know how to reach consumers. And I was like, I don't know how to scale my business. And we both just, kind of had what each other needed during that time.
I love it. And I love what you said, infertility became your personality.
Well, and like I said, it's for better and worse. Like, I've been through it personally. I obviously had twins 4 years ago, but I just came off another journey of about a year of IVF that didn't result in a baby. And so I really am in the thick of it with our community members. And can empathize so much with what everyone's going through.
I can tell just when I'm on your Instagram page, like how helpful the information is for the people who are engaging with it. So thank you for everything that you guys have done. So just tell us more about Rescripted and merging of your two companies for people who are listening.
Rescripted is the #1 patient education platform, and we provide content, tools, and resources for wherever you are on your journey to build your family. We work with consumers. It's always free for consumers, which is something we're incredibly proud of. We see so many different solutions for consumers that they have to pay for. And I'm somebody who took out a second mortgage to go through IVF, and paying for something else is the last thing that we think a consumer should have to do. So always free. Essentially, what people really love about us is our ability to write just really empathetic content that is also scientifically driven. We have a medical advisory team. We have a bunch of scientific writers. Kristyn's our editor in chief. And in addition to the content that we're providing, we have what we call tools and resources for wherever you are in your journey to build a family. What's really cool about our tools and resources is that they're crowdsourced. We reach about 9 million people on a monthly basis, and we love feedback. Like, we're entrepreneurs. That's how we live and breathe, is feedback from our community. And so they tell us what we want or what they want. And we have a technology company, so we build what they want. The 3 things that they've told us that they've wanted to date. And the first is our social network. So this is a place where people can really authentically engage in whatever's on their plate, whether that's a PCOS diagnosis, an endometriosis diagnosis, whether they're like just starting out, they're not even experiencing infertility. So we touch fertility, infertility, and pregnancy loss. So that's our social network. Second is our shop. So we've put together a marketplace for products and services within the fertility industry. We like to say that this is a place for the things you want, the things you need, and the things that you never knew that you wanted or needed. And a funny example of that, like one of our top sellers is lube. So who knew? Who knew you needed like TTC safe lube on your journey to build your family? I personally didn't know that. Another great thing about our marketplace is we're able to support other founders in this space. And that's one of my absolute favorite things to do. And then our third is our pharmacy. So this is a place for consumers to buy IVF medications and to work with our network of pharmacies and to really get a consumer experience that they're used to, along with our educational tools. And that kind of comes from the best shot of things. And obviously the content comes from the fertility tribe side of things.
And then when you mention medications, how does that work? How do people actually buy the medications through Rescripted?
So the 3 things that we're really best at. So best in class service, like the pharmacies that we work with are really, they're taking kind of a kid glove approach to taking care of patients. Also, we have some of the best pricing, if not the best pricing in the industry. And Dr. Amy, you know this obviously, but the way that medication pricing is often looked at in the industry is like from a volume perspective. If you're going to a massive clinic as a patient, like you're probably going to get great medication pricing. However, if you're going to a small boutique clinic, that might not always be the case. I don't know. It really depends. How our partners look at us is as one of the largest fertility clinics in the world. So all of that said, we get great pricing deals for our patients. Every Rescripted patient gets a card, and that card, they take it to their nurse and they say, I want to go through Rescripted RX to get my medications. And then they'll, of course, receive their prescriptions from one of our partner pharmacies. And I said, we have great service, we have great pricing. And if we don't beat certain pricing out there, we'll price match. So those are the 3 things that we're really great at.
So for me, I work with Enable as my electronic medical record. And so when I put medication in, I do it electronically through the pharmacy side of my EMR. So then do I just select Rescripted? So that's going to be there?
So we have a relationship with Reunite, with their Cloud RX site, or with that side of the business. So essentially our pharmacy is powered by Reunite, but you get all of the bells and whistles that Rescripted specifically offers to patients, which is more of a consumer oriented experience versus a clinic-oriented experience, if you will. So something that has a Kristyn lens on it, that knows, how to talk to the consumer in a Kristyn type of way.
I love it. So basically, just to clarify for me as the doctor ordering. So if I'm ordering for a patient, because I have to choose a pharmacy when I do it electronically. So do I pick the pharmacy?
Yep. So you'll pick Cloud RX, but essentially, let's say Cloud RX, exactly. You'll say, let's say Kristyn's your patient. And so Kristyn says, here's my Rescripted RX card. Here's the NCPDP ID. Here's whatever else you need to type in to enable. And then you can send your script to Rescripted RX. And then it'll get routed to one of our pharmacies that we really love working with in that network.
Because I know that there are patients who might be telling their doctors, I want to use Rescripted, and they just might not know exactly the language that they need to use. Maybe their doctor didn't watch our podcast, although they should, or listen to it. This is super helpful. Awesome. Thank you for that, because I'll try that and see how it works immediately. And I also think you should have my Egg Whisperer pants in your shop. Just saying.
I've always been such a fan of those pants. They're amazing. So we're excited to offer those to our patients.
So you guys have created a podcast, Dear Infertility, which is so unique. And Kristyn, you host that. And I think it's with Ali Domar. Is that right?
So Ali was our first season co-host, and every season since we've had a different co-host. So season 1 was Ali Domar, and that was specifically around mental health. Season 2 was with Dr. Lucky Seacon. She's a reproductive endocrinologist at RMA of New York. And that one, similarly, 30-minute episodes, all very specific to a stage of the journey. So IUI, IVF, transfer, genetic testing. And then season 3 was really exciting for us because, like Abby said earlier, we've been trying to reach the people that might be just starting out on their journey to conceive. And we really believe as a company that sex ed in the US is broken. And that's why so many people are completely blindsided by their infertility diagnosis. And so we actually did season 3 of the podcast with Dr. Stacey Tanaway, and every episode was a different topic related to, the first one was sex ed Rescripted. There was one about sexual health, one about vaginal health, one about endometriosis, and one about the menstrual cycle. If you're having irregular periods, what are the red flags? When should you speak to a doctor? When should you go to a fertility clinic? And we think that those conversations are really important to have to catch people early, because I say this all the time, but I was 27 years old with a college education, married, and didn't know that if I didn't get my period regularly or at all, that meant I was not ovulating regularly, which meant it was going to be really hard for me to have a baby or get pregnant. That shouldn't be the case. We should be learning this way earlier on, and that's what we're really trying to do at Rescripted.
That's great. Yeah, and Dr. Allison Rogers her book should be out soon about puberty, and I invited her to come on the show. She said, Amy, it's about puberty. I'm like, I know, we have to teach people about puberty. Like that's important, because if they don't know about puberty, how are they going to know all the other stuff?
Well, and I think it's important as moms of daughters, right, to be teaching them the proper anatomical names and teaching them things early, because I know that I didn't really get the talk when I was a kid, and helping them understand that it's not weird or normal. Like Dr. Tanaway and I talked about how, like, your vagina is normal. Like, your vulva doesn't need to be washed, like, with this magical formula that is being marketed.
That smells like flowers. Stop it.
Just feeds into the same message, which is like, these are our bodies. It's normal. Sex is normal. Wanting to have a baby is normal. Infertility is normal. So we just kind of want to normalize and rescript the conversation around all of this stuff.
So you mean front butt and back butt isn't like what we should say?
No, my 3-year-old little girl says vagina. It's pretty awesome. To build on that, not only are people blindsided, but this becomes, infertility is not, like, it is a disease state, but obviously there's so much that build up to what is infertility? Like, what is causing your infertility? And because we didn't learn, not only are we blindsided, but this feels stigmatized. And so that's one of the reasons that Kristyn and I are so focused, and our team is so focused on kind of shattering this stigma and normalizing these conversations. Everybody should be talking about this. This sucks. Let's just chat about it. Why is there so much stigma? 1 in 5 of us will have trouble.
And I think the 3 of us might forget sometimes, or I know I do, that, like, not everyone's comfortable talking about it, because I make people feel really awkward sometimes when they're like, are you done having kids? You have your boy and your girl. And I'm like, no, actually, I've had a year-long fertility journey that didn't end in a baby, and I had 2 miscarriages. And they're like, whoa. But there's so many people who don't want to post on social media or even show anyone that they're following fertility accounts on social media. And so that's why our sort of social network off of traditional social media is helpful, because it's for those people who maybe don't want to even tell their mom, but they still need that level of support.
Yeah, and I love the name Rescripted because you don't necessarily know exactly what it is.
Totally. And that's why we went with the name Rescripted. It's complicated to put two brands together and put two like founders together and say, okay, we're going to create something new together. But for us, it was all about just like going back to basics. We cover fertility and pregnancy loss, but our future is really exciting as we write and as we record video, as we record podcasts, as we continue to put out media and put out content. We cover 10 different categories, and that doesn't even include menopause. Like, we're really excited about going into menopause in the future. The only thing that we will probably never touch is babies. Like, babies are really cute, but like that's a $47 billion market. And we think that there's this like untapped market where women really, really need answers as it relates to their reproductive, hormonal, and sexual health and wellness. We're seeing a lot of investment dollars coming into this industry. And as a result of that, we're seeing the consumer get really, really confused. 40% of women don't understand what ovulation is. Like, how is that possible in this kind of golden age of femtech? It's not okay. That's really what we want to be, is like, if you're a woman from your first period to your last period, like, we're there on this journey with you, for you, providing you content, tools, and resources. So that is us. And that's what we're proud to cover.
Patients are always Googling and, we don't want them to find these articles where it's like super medical and, the information's not being broken down for them, or if it is, it's not spoken to them with that emotional vantage point that so much of this entails when you're going through this process. So we offer patient-centric content that's always free, but we tap into some of these brands and clinics that we work with to help make sure that it's expert driven and science backed.
And how do you hope to see the fertility industry change the next 5 to 10 years?
It's more like, how do we want our education system to change in the next 5 to 10 years? I think for us, we've already talked about at length, like, sex ed is broken. We know how to put a condom on a banana, we use birth control, like whatever. It's just so much more multifaceted than that. And I think that's where you start shattering the stigma. Jessica Bell Vanderwall, the founder of Frame Fertility, who's a good friend of ours, she and her team did some research that reproductive anxiety starts in your late teens. And so I think it's really taking down that like emotional burden for that individual.
On the other side of the coin, I think that by changing the conversation and working towards ending the stigma, my hope is that more companies will start covering fertility treatments, and that more states will have IVF insurance mandates, and things will move in a better direction when it comes to just infertility being treated like a disease, that because it is. And I think we see so many people who feel like IVF is completely unattainable for them. And we really want to speak to those people and show them that there are options out there, but we can only do so much. Change has to happen from these companies that are providing the insurance.
Great. I have chills listening to you guys. I can feel your passion and I love you guys.
We love you.
Do you guys have anything coming up that you want to share with us? Maybe in the next couple months it's coming out soon?
It's fun for us, but the holidays are not fun when you're struggling with infertility. So we're really going to try to create a lot of content that helps people navigate that time. And also in the new year, we're launching season 4 of the Dear Infertility podcast, which is kind of going back to our roots. And each episode is going to be a different personal story from, I guess you could say, celebrity that has been open on their platform about their fertility struggles or journeys through pregnancy loss. And they were gracious enough to share their story with us. So we're in the middle of recording that and can't wait to bring it to everyone who listens to the podcast.
We have IVF medications in our pharmacy, and we're really excited to go upstream and to carry more pharmaceuticals that are helpful for women who are maybe not going through IVF, like BV, STIs, UTIs, all the things that we have all dealt with. But it's really sometimes difficult to get those meds.
Thank you guys for joining me today. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we sign off?
So you can find us at rescripted.com and on Instagram at fertility.rescripted. And yeah, it's a safe space, so come join us.
You guys, thank you for joining us today. I really loved talking to you more. I could sit here all day long and just sip on my coffee and chat with you guys about fertility. So thank you for creating such a safe space for my patients and for everyone out there who is just going through such a shitty thing, which is being a fertility patient. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Amy, for everything that you do, and we're happy to help as well.
Thanks again.